I had to surpass all thought and allow my instincts and reactions to take over completely. The deer approached the field right on time. His mother was upwind and a few 100 feet downfield. As he had done hundreds of times before, he walked under the tree and stopped to survey the open field. There was no fear in him because nothing in his routine was broken. Nothing on the landscape was out of place. With no thoughts in my head, allowing the predator within to take over, I dropped from the upper branches of the tree onto his small back. I thrust the spear through the one side of the deer's back, of my intended mark, by a few inches, but he went down. He thrashed, crippled in the hind legs because part of the spinal column had been severed, but still alive. In a fit of rage at my own failure at a clean kill, and fired by the awesome instincts of the predator, I began to choke the little deer to death. It seemed to take hours to kill him. I was half out of my mind with the power of the kill when suddenly my eyes caught the eyes of the deer as he slowly died. A shock came over me as I now regained human consciousness. Coming slowly to my senses, I gazed into the terror in his eyes, my hands trembling as I cut off his breath, my mind racing back to the week before, and the way I knew this little deer as a brother. Another shudder from the deer brought me back to his eyes. This time the terror was replaced by understanding and release. In that moment of intense eye contact, the deer knew that he wants to become my life's blood. There was no struggle, only a knowing acceptance. I fell off him, exhausted. My body shook, not with excitement for the hunt, but with tears. His blood covered me and mixed my sweat with my sweat. I grew nauseous at the thought of what I had done. Natural order of things or not, I felt sick and disgusted with the whole killing. I knew this little deer as a brother. I followed him, watched him feed, and slept close to him for many nights. Now it was over. I had removed this deer from the flow of life, and I felt no better than a murderer. I just could not make sense of it at all. Nor could I ever forgive myself for this vicious act, sacred or not. Still sobbing, I threw his body over my shoulders and headed back to camp. He was so light and sickly that I could hardly feel his weight, except for the warm blood that ran down my chest and back. His presence was almost imperceptible. Thoughts raced through my head as I tried to justify his death. Certainly, I needed the meat to survive, and his flesh would find a rebirth in my flesh. But why did it have to be that way? Why the pain? Why couldn't we eat plants instead of inflicting pain on another animal? I knew killing now. It wasn't easy and removed, like pulling back a bow or the trigger of a gun, allowing the arrow or bullet to do the killing. I felt the pain and loss known only to those who have felt an animal's spirit slip through their fingers. I knew the awesome responsibility of the sacred hunt and the ultimate sacrifice of life giving to life. I would never kill again without feeling this pain and sacrifice. My prayers to the hunt would never be parroted emptily or without conviction. I knew the hunt. The trip seemed endless. The demons of my mind swirled like clouds. So many questions unanswered. So much guilt, so many crushing and debilitating emotions. I tried desperately to make sense of it all. The tears and sobs were endless. My heart felt as if it were ripped from my chest, and there was no way out of my pain and sorrow. I had lost a friend, a brother, and couldn't really justify his death. Would it not have been in the natural order of things to let him die of starvation this winter? Why do we have to be the caretakers? And how can I be part of this sacred cycle if I have felt so much pain? In my mind I was denying that humankind was a necessary and intricate part of things, regardless of what grandfather was trying to show us to the contrary. As I walked up the path to camp, I caught sight of grandfather leaning against a tree, watching me. In a way I hated him for making me kill this way. As I drew closer, I made no attempt to hide my tears, but gazed right into his eyes. For a fleeting moment I caught the same glimmer the deer had in his eyes, the all-knowing feeling. He plainly saw my pain and suffering. He sensed the myriads of questions flowing through my mind, and I know now he must have had at one time. He pointed an old and gnarled finger at me and said, "Grandson, when you can feel the same pain and suffering for a blade of grass ripped from the earth as you do for that deer, you will truly be one with all things." His words hit me like a hammer. The death of rabbits in my traps and the plants and trees from the ground to feed me had given me no pain in the past because I was removed from the killing. Now I understood fully. To be appreciated and respected, a thing need not to be living, breathing and warm-blooded, or have eyes and to be considered cute. Everything is composed of the same spirit that moves through all things, and all equally sacrifice their lives for our lives. The only difference is that up to this time I could not feel the pain of the plants. I could not hear them scream or see them bleed. It wasn't that we should give up killing deer or animals because they are like us, but that we should realize we are part of the spirit that moves through all things. Everything is equal if we listen with our hearts and not our minds. Ever since his words were spoken, I have been on a quest to find the oneness of which grandfather spoke. Over the years I have found that oneness. I have learned to feel pain and hear the voices of all living things. I know that all things are equal and should not be judged in some man-made merit system or evolutionary ladder. Beyond that, I have learned that everything is composed of that spirit, water, earth, sky, and mind. They all contribute to life, every part a piece of an overall puzzle, everything necessary to the whole. When something is needlessly killed or removed from the flow of life, with no forethought or feeling, then it is part of all things that are dying. We move within the realm of creation, and creation moves in us. There is no inner or outer dimension. Our quest should be to break down the walls and learn to be one with all things. This book then becomes your doorway. Tom Brown's Field Guide to Wild Edible and Medicinal Plants. So after this, I seriously considered vegetarian nutrition for myself, and I started, and because of time reasons I will continue to explain something about this in the next video.